During a car accident on Mingxi, she was bound by the system and traveled to Ye Luoli, becoming a character that had never appeared before. Split CP+Black Silence. The female lead has a CP, which is a self-created character. She doesn't like to turn left or walk right, and doesn't like to walk slowly. Keywords of the novel. Ye Luoli. Starry Moon Princess No Pop-Ups, Ye Luoli. Starry Moon Princess TXT Complete Collection Download, Ye Luoli. Starry Moon Princess Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Crossing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Crossing. A man was controlling an out-of-control truck and anxiously shouted to the front, "Be careful of the little girl in front, get out of the way." The woman was momentarily stunned when she heard the sound, and randomly reacted. She wanted to avoid it, but it was too late. The fast-approaching truck had already knocked her down. Hurry up. Call 120. Quick. Little girl, hold on. Surrounded by the screams and cries of many people, it seemed that some were calling 120, as if someone was calling her name, and the footsteps running towards her. Her eyelids are heavy, and she no longer has the strength to lift them. System binding completion rate of 1%, 56%, 88%. 100%. Hello, host. System 002 is at your service. I am your system, code 002. The host was unable to save in the original world, so the system selected you as the host. Do I need to do anything? No need. This can be considered as compensation for the host's malicious female supporting plot. After a period of silence, the woman calmly spoke up and asked, "What is a malicious female supporting character?" The original world of the host is a novel, in which you are the biggest malicious female supporting character. The intern you suppressed is the female lead, and the male lead is Long Ao. Your car accident was also designed by them. The woman smiled sarcastically, feeling that the so-called protagonist was extremely foolish. Although she was not favored in the family, she was born from the original wife and held a certain amount of shares, which would make them feel better in the future. Which shattered world do I need to go to? Ye Luoli Elf Dream. International bad movies that have long been heard of. Rest assured, your identity will not be too bad, and you can also choose to move freely. Okay. Has the host entered the world? Yes. The teleportation channel is open. Loading completed. In the fairyland, the bright moon is in the sky, stars are scattered, and silver light gathers in one place, forming a magnificent palace. In the palace, a woman stands in front of the bright moon. After a while, with the palace as the center, the powerful wave of immortal power gradually spread to the entire fairyland. Is it a holy level fairy born with this fluctuation of immortal power? It's really unheard of. Gradually, the woman transformed into a human form, silver hair, with a jade crown and tassels hanging down, with small jewelry on each side. Wearing a moon-white long dress with some silver patterns, wearing a wind-chimed jade bracelet with some decorations of stars and moon. The jewelry on the body is also related to the stars and moon, with a hint of coldness. Mingxi was teleported and had just regained consciousness. She was looking around and suddenly found a shadow shining on her, with a man standing in front of her. The man chuckled and asked, "Hey, little dwarf, what are you looking at here? Why haven't you seen you in Wonderland? Are you a newly born fairy?" Mingxi is not short either. It's 1.68 meters tall, and wearing high heels is 170. However, facing a man over 1.80 meters tall, he is indeed a bit short. Mingxi heard the sound of the dwarf's face stiffening slightly, and then he slightly raised his head and straightened his back, secretly stepping on his feet. However, he was still slightly shorter than the other person. He immediately mocked and said, "Hey, uncle, who are you? Who am I? Are you secretly in love with me, right?" The man was not angry at all. He gently slapped Mingxi's head with a fan and began to educate him. "The little girl can't be so impolite. She should call her brother, but you are also pitiful. Someone even named a dog, but you didn't. Mingxi touched her head and shouted at the man, "You're not as good as a dog." "My name is Mingxi." Mingxi realized that the other party was trying to provoke her to just shut up, but the man had already heard it. "My name is Ye Mingxian, and the night Mingxian is listed among the stars." "That's not bad, but the person is not very good. So for each other, not only do you not have a good name, but you are also not a good person." Ye Mingxian directly hit Mingxi with a fan again. Mingxi jumped up and wanted to hit him, but as Ye Mingxian dodged to the side, Mingxi fell straight to the ground, completely stunned. Ye Ming frowned deeply and reached out to help her up. She was about to speak, but according to Mingxi's delicate demeanor, her eyes turned red and she burst into tears. Ye Mingxian was a bit at a loss and didn't know what to do for a moment. A light smile came from her ear and she said, "Oh, you made the little girl cry." Ye Ming turned dark and looked at Yan Ju. "Stinky fox, don't talk nonsense." Yan Ju chuckled lightly, fanned the folding fan, and then closed it. Laughing like a strange uncle who abducted children, but he thought he was elegant and asked with a light smile, "This is the newly born fairy. What's the name of the little sister?" Mingxi reluctantly replied, "My name is Mingxi." Before speaking for a while, a few more great fairies arrived, Novice novice, don't complain if you don't like it. If you have any suggestions, feel free to ask. If you can't stand my book, go out and turn left and right. Don't enter, little painter. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Meeting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Meeting. The Water Prince and the Ice Princess are both very normal, just briefly introduced, without saying much. They are both very cold. Compared to the two of them, Du Shifei was much more enthusiastic. At this time, she had not yet been contaminated by toxins. She looked charming, with a graceful figure. Her qipao accentuated her beauty, and she affectionately took Mingxi's hand and began to speak, like a big sister. In no time, Pang Zun rode the thunderbolt Qilin with Bai Guangying to the scene. He flipped over the Qilin, crossed his waist with one hand, wildly arrogant, with his nostrils facing the sky. Bai Guangying beside him was much calmer. As soon as they met, Pang Zun spoke with a sarcastic tone and said, "Yan Ju, where did this fairy come from? She's still so fat. If she gets a little fatter, she can grow into a ball. And she's sure she's not a child." After speaking, he was very confident and didn't have any worries when he said this, as if the heavenly king and Laozi had come and couldn't bear it anymore. Upon hearing Pang Zun's words, Bai Guangying on the side was about to persuade him, but Mingxi couldn't resist and didn't hesitate to step on Pang Zun's foot, using the heel of her shoe to do so with great force. After feeling the pain in his feet, Pang Zun immediately let out a loud shout and jumped up. Yan Ju stood aside and opened the fan, covering his face and laughing. Ye Mingxian also stood on the side, holding a smile and gently touching Mingxi's head, but it was still evident that his shoulders were trembling with laughter. Even Bai Guangying couldn't help but chuckle lightly. Mingxi, unwilling to be outdone, straightened his waist and stared at Pang Zun with his head raised. Yan Ju smiled before speaking up as a mediator and said, "All right, don't argue with a little girl, Pang Pang." After hearing this, Mingxi also agreed and said, "Yes, uncle, you're so old. What's wrong with me? And since you're so fat, are you jealous of me?" Pang Zun couldn't speak of being scolded, so he could only change the topic. "Hey, stinky fox, my figure is so standard. Why do you call me chubby?" Yan Ju just casually said, "Pang Zun sounds like a chubby guy, I just like to give people nicknames." After that, he shook his fan twice, looking in a good mood. Mingxi snorted when she heard it, and then spoke again, "Oh, uncle doesn't even admit that he's overweight. I'll just say, you're just jealous of me, but I'm naturally generous, so I won't argue with uncle." Pang Zun was about to calm down, but upon hearing Mingxi's words, he immediately became angry again. He picked up a whip and threw it at her, while Ye Mingxi leaned against the wall and watched the commotion. Mingxi reached out a hand and whispered, "Ye Luoli's magic, moon shield." A full moon-like shield appeared in front of her, emitting a silver light, blocking Pang Zun's attack. Pang Zun used several more spells, but they were all blocked by Mingxi. Pang Zun was stunned when he saw his attack being blocked, and Mingxi was also stunned for a moment. Then he began to mock, "Hey, uncle is so weak. You can't do it." Pang Zun was already a hot-tempered person. When he heard Mingxi say this, he wanted to attack her again. However, he was stopped by Ye Mingxi, who had been watching the show for a long time. Ye Mingxi spoke to Pang Zun and said, "All right, don't bully the little girl. If you can't beat her, don't let others talk about it. What's the ability to bully a newly born fairy? If you have the ability, fight me." Upon hearing what Emperor Yuan said, Pang Zun also put down his whip. He knew he couldn't beat Ye Mingxi. Ye Mingxi was a destructive fairy, also known as Death, and had some connection with Princess Ling. Death was always present, and he was a strong presence. Pang Zun once challenged Ye Mingxi himself, but he was soon defeated. He was still defeated by Ye Mingxi within half an hour. Yan Ju and his companions laughed at this for a long time. Everyone else clearly thought of this and chuckled softly, but Mingxi was an outsider. Without hesitation, she laughed and mocked, "Oh, uncle, are you so cowardly?" Upon hearing Mingxi's mockery, Pang Zun was about to take action, but when he saw Ye Mingxi on one side, he could only retreat and let out a soft snort. He hugged his chest with both hands and leaned against the wall, looking displeased. But Mingxi clearly didn't know what convergence was. She also hugged her chest and back with both hands, straightened her head high, and deliberately ran to Pang Zun's side. If it weren't for one night when Ye Mingxi was on the side, Pang Zun would have wanted to angrily wave his fist and hit her. When Mingxi saw that Pang Zun didn't dare to hit her, she became even more angry. Every time Pang Zun pretended to wave his fist next to her, she would hide behind Ye Mingxi. Unfortunately, Ye Mingxi still protected her, and Pang Zun could only swallow this breath into his stomach. Mingxi sat there for a while, but without patience, she sneaked out. Wandering east and west, strolling east and west, Mingxi didn't know how long she had been walking. Suddenly, she heard cries coming from nearby. She walked gently over and saw a girl wearing bright yellow clothes crying beside her. Mingxi ran over to comfort her. "What's wrong with you? Did someone bully you? It's okay, let's play together. What's your name?" The girl whispered, "My name is Mandora, and they say I'm a mirror thief and don't want to play with me. Aren't you afraid I'll steal your spell?" Mingxi immediately raised her head high and said, "I'm not afraid." Then she picked up Mandora to play together, but played for too long and forgot the way. Both of them got lost, and in the end, Mingxi squatted on the ground without any image and cried loudly. She drew Ye Mingxi, who had come out to find Mingxi, to take them back. On the way back, Ye Mingxi was like an old father, constantly telling Mingxi to take her back to her own palace, before finally planning to leave with peace of mind. Before leaving, he gave her all kinds of advice. But Mingxi still happily talked to Mandora, completely forgetting about what she almost got lost just now, and asked Mandora to remember to come and find her tomorrow, leaving Ye Mingxi speechless. At this moment, Mingxi's body was covered in mud, her hair was messy, the tears on her face were not yet dry, her eyes were still a little red, her shoes were stained with a few grass, and her face was still a bit gray. She looked like a little flower cat, and although she laughed cute, she looked a bit like the two idiots next door. It was Mandora who couldn't bear to look down and whispered to her, only then did she realize how bad her image was. Mingxi's face also showed some blush, and she felt embarrassed and socially dead. However, in the end, she waved goodbye to Mandora. Although Mingxi is usually pampered and doesn't have many cleanliness fetishes, facing her current situation, she still feels very uneasy in her heart. The cold goddess's appearance has completely transformed into a beggar's appearance, making her want to immediately escape here and return to the palace to avoid this embarrassment. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Supplement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 supplement. Here is a supplement for everyone. If there are any areas you don't like here, please don't criticize them. If there are any areas that you don't write well, feel free to share your suggestions. Once again, in most cases, the opinions of the readers are still the top priority. There are many black people in this book, mainly including Wang Mo and Jianpeng. Slightly black. Xinling. The Prince of Water is uncertain. Based on the reader's opinion, if it doesn't work out, let him be a romantic brain. Therefore, fans of Xianling, Wang Mo, Jianpeng, and others should not enter, as I mentioned earlier in the author's comments. I have also mentioned dismantling CP, which will be added later. Xianling, Huang Shi. I'm not sure if by Guangying CP is Pang Zun or Gao Taiming, and I can also let by Guangying be beautiful alone. It's not necessary to have a CP. If I have to have a CP, I will have several new characters in the later stage. The Water Prince and Wang Mo are not sure whether to dismantle it or not. It mainly depends on your opinions. If it doesn't work out, let them lock their love minds together. Don't force some irrational fans on my side. This novel was originally written by me on a whim, mainly for myself to read. I can write it as I like. I will dismantle the characters I mentioned above, and I will criticize them. Some parts are not written well, please forgive me, but you can also raise them, provided that your opinion is correct and well-founded. When I write, there may be some deviation from the original plot, after all, I can't remember too much. The workload of 10 seasons is really not complete, so I will also choose some deletions. Also, we changed Wang Mo and his classmates from elementary school to high school, mainly because there were some plotlines in the later stages, in order to keep up and not be so awkward when writing. The main reason was that elementary school students saved the world, which was a bit too high. As mentioned earlier, elementary school students saved the world, but I will fill in this hole in the plot. I sometimes interrupt, but it won't be too frequent, everyone rest assured. When I was writing, we should not roast that the hostess is too vicious, too delicate, and too stingy. I mentioned earlier that the hostess was a vicious girl in a novel in her last life, and I did not stipulate that the hostess must help the original cartoon protagonist group to save the world. The hostess can be bad or good, which does not stipulate that she must be bad or good. Good and evil are all in one thought. Jiaoqi, as I mentioned earlier, I set her up as the eldest lady of a big family in her previous life. Although she is not favored in the family, she is still treated very well, right? And she also has shares in the company, why be a little coquettish? Also, I would like to declare that I did not plagiarize. The book on tomatoes is also mine, but I have taken it off the shelves and come here to write because although tomatoes seems to have a lot of money, it is really difficult to get by. I have also tried my best on tomatoes, but I cannot pass it. The fans who transferred from tomatoes are really sorry, and the fans of the second book are also very sorry. I am sorry, I cannot pass it, and the data is dismal == let me go. I'm really sorry for the books that were transferred from tomatoes. I really can't get by with tomatoes, so I can only come to QQ to read and continue writing for you. Chapter 4. Fighting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Fighting. The next day, Mingxi went out and happened to meet Pang Zun, who was taking a stroll. She only sighed with misfortune in her heart. Although she had already been angry before, she was already a cautious and vengeful person. How could she let go so easily? Looking at Pang Xi, she opened her mouth with a smile and mocked, "Oh, what a narrow path for enemies. It's unlucky." Upon hearing these words, Pang Zun, although angry in his heart, cautiously looked around and confirmed that there was no figure of Ye Mingxi. He then retorted, "The dwarf has come out to exercise. Indeed, you are the naked eye, so you should indeed reduce your weight. Also, such a short stature should indeed grow taller." Mingxi's face stiffened. She usually dislikes being called short. Pang Zun accurately bounced twice on her lightning spot, saying, "Where? No matter how fat I am, I can't compare to you, uncle. And uncle, you can't even hold on for half an hour under Ye Mingxi's command. I heard that Ye Mingxi still allows you, uncle, you're so useless." This is still the gossip that Mingxi brought up from Yanju. However, although Mingxi's face was smiling now, he cursed Pang Zun 1,000,000 times in his heart. Upon hearing these words, Pang Zun's face turned black. He disliked others mentioning his dark history the most. In addition, Mingxi kept talking on the side, and even if he tried to hold her back, he couldn't resist. He picked up his whip and swung it over. Mingxi also easily blocked it and returned a few moon blades. Pang Zun was about to get angry, but encountered something and sarcastically said, "Oh, why are you only using these ordinary low-level spells there? It shouldn't be high-level spells, right?" Upon hearing Pang Zun's words, Mingxi's martial arts finally couldn't sustain themselves. In fact, it was just that she had only mastered spells for a short time and was not very proficient. Moreover, advanced spells consumed a lot of immortal power, which she couldn't bear to part with. However, Mingxi still couldn't bear to be criticized for being incompetent. The two figures kept shuttling back and forth, causing a great commotion. In the end, Yanju and Ye Mingxi also heard this commotion and took them away as a result. Mingxi Pavilion they stood honestly, their heads curled up like quails, facing one question after another thrown by Sir Yan, never daring to answer. When asked, "Why are you fighting?" Mingxi couldn't resist the pressure and spoke weakly, "He was the one who provoked me first." Pang Zun also realized that Mingxi wanted to throw the pot at him, and immediately shouted on the side, "She was the one who provoked me first." Mingxi immediately interrupted him and argued with him on the side, but was immediately interrupted by Yanju. He began to train these two bear children and demanded that they submit a 3,000-word review. Ye Mingxi, who had been silent for a long time, spoke up and asked, "Does the wound hurt?" Upon hearing this, Mingxi realized that she was the one who made the mistake. Now that she had heard these words, she felt a bit aggrieved and gently tugged at Ye Mingxi's sleeve. Ye Mingxi still softened his heart as he looked at her. He glanced at Yanju and said, "Forget it, it's not a big deal for children to fight and argue with each other." Yanju looked at them and felt a little helpless, but he still avoided this self-reflection. "Before leaving, I sent the three of them away and still reminded them." Mingxi looked at Ye Mingxi, but didn't dare to speak. Ye Mingxi let out a soft sigh and spoke helplessly, "Don't fight with anyone next time, protect yourself. If you can't come to me, I'll make a scene for you. Do you hear me?" After saying that, he gently touched Mingxi's head. Mingxi secretly turned red in her eyes and lowered her head slightly, afraid of being seen crying. She just nodded lightly. Ye Mingxi also saw the red eyes of his own little girl and only gently comforted her. Ye Mingxi felt that he was probably also crazy. He knew that although he was carefree all day, in reality, he was indifferent to anyone in his heart. Unless it affected him, he would never have any concerns. Even the survival of the fairyland could be indifferent. Now, he couldn't help but favor the little fairy whom he had only known for a few days, and he also had some weight in his heart towards her. He only smiled lightly on his face. Do as you please. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Barrier. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Barrier. Recently, Mingxi has only occasionally been holding Ye Mingxi and fighting with Pang Zun, or going to chat and talk to some fairies. She has also improved her relationship with Mandora a lot, going to play together from time to time. Just for a day when Mandora came to find Mingxi, Mingxi clearly noticed her absent-minded appearance and spoke up to ask, "What's wrong? Those fairies are talking nonsense again. Can you tell me, right? If so, I'll go beat them up and vent my anger on you. Don't be sad, they're just jealous of you, and I'm with you." Mandora was also amused when she heard these comforting words in a childlike tone. Then, as if she remembered something, she looked worried again and said, "No, it's not really a big deal. It's just because of things in the human world that we had some fights with our sister. Our sister firmly believes that one day humans will change and start protecting nature. However, I believe that humans have never changed in so many years, but have only intensified." Mandora thought of the past few days and sighed, feeling a little down as she spoke. Some fairies in the fairyland have started to disappear, and even some big fairies have been affected to some extent. I don't understand what kind of enchanting soup humans have given my sister. The fairyland is now so polluted, but my sister doesn't even look at it and has been defending humanity. She doesn't even care about the survival of the fairyland. Mingxi thinks of the plot that 002 gave her, and she can't help sighing. She knows that one day their sisters will appear in this scene. Even if there is no human, their relationship has become increasingly distant, as if she was a human, but the past 1,000 years have erased her memory of the human world, and she also knows that this is not the world she used to be, but just an animation. Mingxi sighed lightly, patted Mandora's back, and comforted her softly, "Neither of you is wrong, it's just that your method is too extreme. You should all think about it. Why don't you try adjusting it and not give humans some more time? What you see is too one-sided, one only sees the kindest side of humanity, and the other only sees the most vicious side of humanity. Time will prove everything, so don't worry too much. If the fairyland is really going to perish, then humans will be as you said." Mingxi is both advising and giving Mandora a step down. She will choose between the survival of the fairyland and her only relative. Mandora will choose the survival of the fairyland, but she may not be able to win over her sister. For Mandora, she will always care about her only sister no matter when. Mandora could only nod lightly. Following this step, she had no other choice. One was her closest sister and the other was the survival of the fairyland. It was difficult for her to make a quick choice, just like Mingxi said. If humans continue to be stubborn, she is not afraid of becoming a life-or-death enemy with her sister. As soon as Mandora left, she felt the magical power of the Time Princess on the next night, but she didn't understand. At the same time, she didn't have much interaction and couldn't even be called too familiar. Although she was very suspicious in her heart, she still set off. Stars, moons, and public moons. Princess time. Although Mingxi is usually indulgent, as a young lady, there is no shortage of etiquette that one should have. "Princess Xingyue, I have invited you here to tell you about the future that I and Hui have seen." Mingxi was also puzzled in her heart. This matter had nothing to do with her, but she still nodded lightly. "Princess Starry Moon, before your birth, I and Gray divined that the future fairyland and the human world would encounter a great calamity, no longer existing, with a thread of vitality connected to the human world. However, after your birth, the results of our divination became completely different. The future fairyland was full of infinite vitality, and the connection between the human world was also lost, so. I'm that variable, right?" Mingxi calmly spoke up. She was a spoiled and innocent person, but she wasn't stupid. She was also a person who fought from the family, otherwise how could she possibly hold such a large share? "Have you been safe and sound for so many years?" She nodded with a smile and said, "What Princess Xingyue said is good. If Princess Ryu has time next time, she can come to visit at 4 o'clock. She quite appreciates Mingxi, and she has always admired smart people." Mingxi nodded and saw Shi's figure slowly disappear. At this moment, a system that had not appeared for a long time suddenly spoke in her mind. "Host, the main storyline of this world is about to begin, but we can participate or not, everything depends on fate, don't worry." Mingxi nodded calmly, but what she thought to herself was, since the task was about to be completed, let's take advantage of the remaining time to rest and have fun. But I couldn't help but feel a little worried about Mandora in my heart. Although I haven't spent much time with Mandora these days, I also know that Mandora cares very much about her own biological sister. When the plot starts, she will go to war with her most concerned sister and become enemies. How sad she should be seeing Mandora, she couldn't hide her happiness on her face. Mandora spoke happily, "Sheer, my sister is willing to watch with me for a while. My relationship with her has eased a lot these days. Thank you very much." Mingxi thought of that plot and looked at Mandora, who was overjoyed in front of her. She hesitated for a moment and asked, "Do you really care about this sister? If one day you become enemies, then—" Mandora interrupted before Mingxi could finish speaking. "Mingxi, I know you're doing it for me, but she's my only sister. I'll definitely care about her. If there's really one day, then let's wait until that day comes before we talk." Mingxi just let out a slight sigh and then put on a smiling face. What she thought to herself was, try to make Mandora happy these days, at least after that big battle, she will not be so sad, let Mandora know that there is at least one of herself standing on her side. If possible, she would like to shift the plot as far as possible, at least to make the sisters' relationship between them persist. She doesn't know how long she can save it, but she just wants to make Mandora happy. Before her travels, Mingxi had a good friend, but it was only through an accident that she found out that the so-called friend was only greedy for her money and status, and often spoke ill of Mingxi behind her back. Moreover, she was with her usual group of friends who were also considered good friends. At that time, she didn't understand why they were still playing happily together yesterday. Why did they become like this today? But she is also quite clear-headed. In terms of social interaction, she has always been very calm. The so-called friends are only used to maintain communication for her own interests, and are just one of the commercial means. She was still the pampered young lady, and such a small matter did not damage her mood. She forgot what happened to her once close friend after breaking up with her. She only remembered how the person had suffered after losing some of the financial supplements she occasionally gave her. Later, the person seemed to want to reconcile with her, but she humiliated her a bit. However, she didn't know what was wrong with her at the time. She didn't feel very happy and didn't feel the pleasure of revenge. Later, she changed to a better school, where the people were all wealthy gentlemen and ladies. However, she was afraid that after Mandora experienced the betrayal of her most important biological sister, she would really become as crazy as in the original plot, even to the point where she could not save her. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Before the Great War. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Before the Great War. After being tested, the new head of the Mingxi Pavilion has been appointed as Time Princess. Shi, Thunderbolt Lord. Pang Zun, Spirit Princess. Hua Ling, Water Prince. Shui Qingli, Love Princess. Ai Zhen, Imperial Prince. Li Hui, Poison Empress. Du Shifei, an Attendant. Yan Ju. The relationship between Mingxi and the fairies in the fairyland was quite good, so there was not much dispute. Just with some emotion, as Mandora said, not only the little fairies disappeared, but even the millennium-old fairies like Ice Princess were also affected. Among the fairies in the fairyland, besides Mandora, she has the best relationship with Poison Shifei. She also knows how much Poison Shifei cares about her appearance in her daily life. Now, her face is covered in poison marks and she refuses everyone's touch. If possible, Poison Shifei doesn't want her powerful power. He wants to exchange her once beautiful appearance. As soon as I returned, I received an invitation from Xin on Mingxi. She moved forward and backward, just as she had guessed. Xinling wanted to join forces with her and invite her to resist Mandora and protect the human world. There was no other expression on Mingxi's face, but Xinling beside her became anxious and said, "Princess Xingyue, please believe me." Humans will protect nature well, and they are also changing. Please believe them, they. The hand that was eating grapes on Mingxi paused before interrupting Xin Ling's words. Did Xin Ling fairy ever notice the disappearance of those little fairies in the fairyland? This was not just some minor casualties, but now even the big fairy has been affected. Have you forgotten? That's your own sister. And currently, I remain neutral, not because I don't trust humans to change, but because time is simply not enough for humans to change. Just like the Ice Princess in the ancient fairies, she used to be such a powerful existence, but now she is so weak that she can only sleep. Those guys used to be so powerful, but now they can only hide and practice in seclusion to slow down their disappearance. And, when humanity changes. Mingxi sneered and looked particularly sarcastic, I'm afraid more fairies will disappear. After all, industrial development has been polluting the environment, and although we want to change it, we cannot stop the pace of development. This is an unsolvable issue, even if humans want to change, it cannot be changed overnight, let alone today, humans have not stopped to change this nature. Even if they stop, the fairies in the fairyland will still not be able to survive until humans save this nature. Even if it does not disappear, it will still be affected by many factors. Xin Ling still stubbornly believed that humans would change. Just as she was about to speak up and try to argue, she saw a bright yellow figure at the door. Mandora said in a deep voice, Sister, are you so partial to human beings? Do you care about our sisters and the existence of fairyland? Looking towards the gate, Mandora stood not far away. Slowly walked over and looked at Xin Ling. Xin Ling did not answer Mandora's words, but was eager to ask Mingxi, Mandora, why did she come? Oman is my guest today. Mingxi sat on a chair and gently bit down a grape. I don't want to deal with the affairs between your sisters. Try not to do anything. Don't forget that you are sisters. Sister, do you know that the harm caused by humans to the fairyland may lead to its demise? The disappearance of fairies one after another is not clear enough, is it? I believe that humans must have realized their mistakes. There is a kind side to the human world. Isn't it good to give them some more time? Let them prove again that they can save nature. Mandora sneered, her purple eyes coldly looking at Xin Ling, mixed with a hint of imperceptible sadness. Sister, it seems that we are destined to have a battle. Let's have a final say tomorrow at Yanhua Mirror Palace. Xinling was stunned, she clearly didn't expect Mandora to talk to her like this, and didn't know how to answer for a moment. Mandora remained silent, with a hint of sadness on her face, and then left. After seeing Mandora leave, Xin Ling immediately said goodbye. Mingxi lay reclined on the bed of the noble consort, with her eyes closed and no word spoken, and she didn't know what was on her mind after Mandora left, the palace regained its former silence. She looked at the sky outside the fairyland, and some of her melancholy dissipated. The weather is going to change, she murmured. Outside the palace. Mandora was also extremely disappointed in her heart. She never thought that Xinling would not even make the final appeal. From beginning to end, she had been speaking for humanity, never caring about fairyland or her. She had never imagined that such a thing as this would happen today, but she did not regret it. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. New Fairy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. New Fairy. Mingxi lay on the table, playing with a hairpin in her hand, and asked the system in a bored manner, System, how long is it until the plot starts? The system replied with its cold, emotionless mechanical voice, there is still a week left, and the host can actually not participate. Mingxi couldn't help but let out a soft sigh, thinking of the recent chaos in the fairyland. Bai Guangying's whereabouts were unknown, and Pang Zun even went to fight Mandora for it. Many fairies have begun to disappear, and even the symptoms of many great fairies have gradually worsened. Moreover, after the war between Mandora and Xin Ling, the two sisters, they really became a pair of enemies, for which they also put a seal on them. Mingxi looked at her doll's joints and couldn't help but sigh, muttering softly. How come the fight between Mandora and Xianling has brought disaster into the pond? I really can't adapt to seeing my body become a doll's joint. I haven't been to the human world here. It's better now. I knew I'd gone before, but I can't go now. What a pity. As she was thinking about it, Mingxi suddenly sensed a wave of immortal power. She couldn't help but frown and ask the system, what's going on? In the original plot, besides me, you stuffed me in, there is also a special night that is deep. Even if it's okay, how can there be a new fairy? The system still had the cold mechanical voice, answering Mingxi, these newly extended fairies were born by the heavenly Tao of this world to make up for the shortcomings in the plot. Moreover, this world is already a flawed world, and it is normal for the current plot to not match the original one. The host does not need to worry. After hearing this explanation, Mingxi didn't say much, just hurried to the place where the new fairy was born. As soon as he arrived, there were already many people. Yanju shook his folding fan and was the first to greet Mingxi, smiling lightly and asking, "Oh, Xiaoxier is also here." Mingxi ignored him and just stepped forward on his own. Yanju was not angry either. In no time, Pang Zun rode the thunderbolt Qilin and arrived, still with a look of wanting to be beaten. However, his face clearly showed a slight haggard, and when he saw tomorrow, he spoke in the same tone. So few people came this time. Did everyone else die? I think he might be a dwarf again, right? Mingxi was originally a bit worried that something might happen to Pang Zun due to the disappearance of Bai Guangying. Now, hearing these words, her worried expression immediately sank. She walked up to him without hesitation and kicked him again. She knew that Pang Zun was clearly trying to provoke trouble, watching her fight with Yanju. After finishing the fight, he walked to the side again and patiently began to wait. Finally, after a burst of light, a little fairy appeared. She was dressed in a light blue princess dress, with misty blue hair and two small bells tied to both sides of her hair. There were also some small bell decorations, and a small bell was tied to her ankle. There were also some butterflies on her crown as decorations. She held a fan in her hand, with a blue butterfly tied to the handle and a blue wind chime. Her eyes were also blue, like a clear sea, with stars hidden. She had almond eyes, a round face, and two small pear vortices when she smiled. She was 1.68 meters tall. It looks like a little lowly, but this new fairy is cute yet a bit gentle. The new fairy opened her eyes and greeted them with a light smile before introducing herself. "Hello, my name is Qinyin and I am a wind attribute fairy." After listening to Feng Shi's introduction, everyone began to introduce him. Yanju was the first one to open his mouth. He gently closed the folding fan and saluted. He smiled and said, "My life is called Yanju." The whole person looked polite, but except for his quiet voice, everyone in the room only thought he was an old fox. In particular, Mingxi also complained in public. "Old fox, what kind of handsome son are you installing here? It's greasy, ha 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 ha." Yanju's smiling face was frozen there at that time, and he took the folding fan to knock Mingxi's head gently. Mingxi gave a gentle cry of pain and stared again after a glance at Yanju. Yemingxian also stood by to protect Mingxi. Yanju was angry and funny. When everyone introduced her, there was no expression on her face, except for Princess Qing's innocent expression and extremely happy smile. She didn't miss it this time because she was sleeping, so she pulled Qinyin to talk and talk. Although Mingxi also smiled, it was more like a fake smile. She never liked this kind of thing and felt it was unnecessary. Before, she just felt hypocritical. Ye Mingxian stood aside with a calm expression, occasionally interacting with Mingxi. Pang Zun was much more irritable, but he didn't erupt on the spot. However, it was also when he introduced him with a cold face throughout the entire process, and he only left behind a sentence from Pang Zun, even if the introduction was completed. After introducing everything one by one, everyone remained silent and the scene was extremely awkward. However, the Water Prince stepped forward to relieve the situation. Upon seeing the Water Prince, Qingyin blushed slightly and whispered her gratitude. The Water Prince even personally took Qingyin to choose her palace residence. The meeting was quite successful, except for Pang Zun, Ye Mingxi, and Mingxi who thought it was boring and left early. However, Ye Mingxi only left after seeing Mingxi leave, and when he was on the way to find her, he saw that she was about to go, so he accompanied her. Pang Zun really had no ulterior motives and left without considering others. Although Mingxi and Ye Mingxi knew it would be awkward, neither of them was willing to compromise themselves for the sake of others. It turned out that after the three of them left, Qingyin did feel awkward standing there. The Water Prince, on the other hand, gently comforted her and even touched her hair. However, the Water Prince had no other thoughts and only regarded Qingyin as his younger sister. She would also touch Princess Ice's hair like this, but Qingyin lowered her head and secretly blushed. In fact, as a good sister of Mingxi, she was afraid that Qingyin misunderstood Mingxi, and all the girls were also afraid of Qingyin's embarrassment. Later, she said a few good words for Mingxi and explained that Qingyin nodded politely at the beginning, but when she saw the Water Prince, her face turned a little red. When she heard the Water Prince comforting her and touched her hair, her face became even redder, red like a boiled shrimp. When she looked at this scene, her eyes almost turned to heaven, and her heart was speechless. When she left, Qingyin also he quietly sent the Water Prince a small wind chime, but what the prince didn't know was that the wind chime was actually engraved with a name, a clear voice name. At that time, everyone thought that Qingyin blushed because she was shy, so they didn't pay much attention. On the contrary, Yan Zhu made a few jokes about Feng Shi. The Water Prince didn't pay attention, perhaps only Qingyin knew that when she opened her eyes after birth, she saw the blue-haired boy in the crowd, a girl who couldn't even distinguish good from evil. However, she developed a liking for that boy and blushed shyly. She doesn't know if this relationship is love or family, right or wrong. In the beautiful fairyland, two blue figures slowly walked. The man tied his blue hair behind his head with a blue ribbon, his whole body gentle and cold, with no other expression on her face. The girl's face was peach blossom, her cheeks slightly red, and she occasionally looked up at the man. When the man noticed her, he quickly lowered his head like a deer in his heart. The wind blew over the lake, creating waves. The girl looked shyly at the man and walked away shyly, unaware that her gaze caused ripples in the man's heart. Water love brain doesn't match my gentle little sister. I don't know if I should arrange a new CP for the Water Prince, but it mainly depends on your intentions. If I don't, let the Water Prince continue to be a romantic brain, and the Qingyin little sister become a strong woman. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Human World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Human World. Host, the original storyline has started. Do you want to go and see it? The system asked aloud. Mingxi, who was originally bored, immediately stood up when he heard these words. But the system asked again, but the door is sealed, and the host can't go through either. Upon hearing these words, Mingxi was initially somewhat disappointed, but then she thought of something and became happy again, bouncing away. What are you doing in the human world? Mingxi shook Ye Mingxi's sleeve and spoke coquettishly, oh, please, I'm curious, so let me go and take a look. This is it, I swear. But what was in her heart was, I'll swear again next time I go. Ye Mingxi was so rubbed that she couldn't help it. She rubbed her eyebrows and gave her the key to Mingxi. She gave her a few more instructions before letting her go, but it was also in one ear and out the other. Mingxi just kept nodding. The human world. Goodbye, Mom, I'm going to school. Wang Mo walked happily on the road. Silently, I forgot to bring your homework book. Wang Mo's mother chased after her and shook the homework book in her hand. Thank you, Mom. Wang Mo walked over and turned to ask her to put her homework book in her backpack. I will pay attention in the future. I went to school. Mingxi secretly hid on the side and looked at him. Are you sure this isn't a bit heartless about the system? 002 was somewhat speechless, but still answered, this is the protagonist's character. The protagonist's character is innocent, a cute girl with a little carelessness. Then, unexpectedly, she signed a contract with a living doll named Ye Luoli, and in the fairyland, she saw a handsome, gentle, aloof, powerful, and mysterious prince. What kind of ghost plot? I haven't watched this kind of plot since I was a year old. Do you call it a bit careless? 002 remained silent and immediately changed the topic. By the way, Tiandao suddenly changed the plot and changed the protagonist group to high school students. Mingxi looked contemptuous and spoke sarcastically, my nieces, who are only a dozen years old, are so careless. High school students are still so careless. Tiandao did not modify anything else, only changed them to high school students for the convenience of passing the review. After all, elementary school students' early love will be banned. The heavenly way is quite humanized, why not improve the female lead's intelligence as well? As Wang Mo walked, the flowers on the tree fell in the wind and surrounded her. She exclaimed in confusion, huh? It's summer now, how could any flowers fall? Why can't there be flowers blooming in summer? For example, blue snowflakes, skyflowers, platycodon, summer violets, chrysanthemums, lilies, sunflowers, water lilies, sunflowers, and iris all bloom in summer. 002 couldn't help but feel a little annoyed and began to refute, don't get caught up in these bull horns, just sigh, can't you highlight the magic? Or don't you think it's very beautiful? Mingxi was a bit silent. If it were a beautiful woman, she could have substituted in, but Wang Mo, I'm sorry, forgive her for not being able to substitute in. A petal fell into the palm of my hand and drifted towards the distance. It's so beautiful, how could this petal lead me to where like it's alive? Wang Mo followed the petal and came to the front of the aisle. I've never even paid attention to this narrow path before. She poked her head, trying to see what the other side looked like, but couldn't see anything. I don't know what that place is over there. She walked into the aisle and cautiously entered. Wow, it's so narrow. Even a child my age finds it difficult to pass through. She walked forward step by step. It's getting narrower and narrower. It's so crowded. She walked out of the aisle and looked around. What? Where is this place? The antique architecture seems to have a long history. How come I never knew there was such a place? Petals fell from the sky, stayed by Wang Mo's side for a moment, and then flew towards the doll shop. Why does this petal seem to make me follow it? Mingxi stood invisibly on the roof not far away, wondering the system in her heart, is she talking to herself? Or is she talking to ghosts? And she speaks a lot, one person can say so much. If it were two people, it would definitely be annoying. I really don't know how his official CP could tolerate her so much. The system also hesitated and said, 5th grade elementary school students, don't care about these things, and you don't understand. This is the power of love, not something that a single dog can understand. You're not just a single dog, but it's good that you're mocking me. Sister, in my past life, I was a first class, cold and beautiful woman, still beautiful and wealthy, with many people chasing after me. Wang Mo on the other side is still walking forward. A pink shop came into view, with the sign reading Ye Luoli doll shop. Mingxi can't help but complain to the system roast. Good powder, or dead Barbie powder, so childish, how can there be love? System. Don't worry too much, after all, this was originally intended for elementary school students, and that's how elementary school students' aesthetics were at that time. For elementary school students, especially a group of little girls, they thought it was very attractive. Mingxi remained silent and didn't answer. She only felt that the decoration was very eye-catching. Wang Mo approached the doll shop. Wow, what's this place? Wang Mo walked up to the shop window and looked at Luoli inside in surprise, saying, "What a beautiful doll. I've never seen such a beautiful doll before. I've never seen such a doll before. It's so beautiful. I really like it." Mingxi pointed at Luoli and asked, "Why does she like it? Do you think the doll's movements during the day are magical? Doesn't she think there's a ghost?" 002 also has some silence. At this moment, Xianling walked out from inside. Seeing Wang Mo next to him, he said, "Hello, do you want to be friends with her? Since you like it, how about taking her home?" Upon hearing this, Wang Mo waved his hand and shook his head slightly as he walked over to Xianling, saying, "I really want to take her away, but I don't have the money. Mom earns money very hard, I can't spend money recklessly." Upon hearing Wang Mo's words, Luoli in the shop window praised her in her heart and then turned around with a wicked smile. Mingxi began to evaluate on the other side again. In broad daylight, if I were to travel through time again, I would feel haunted. And that smile is so penetrating, it feels like a woman who successfully caught my attention with a smile from Mr. Ba's quote. However, I can save money on afternoon meals. I don't know if she will still be around when I save enough. Only those destined to be her master will have her. Xianling turned to Wang Mo and said, "Really? I wish I could be her master." Mingxi felt a bit unhappy on one side. Luoli was originally a princess of the royal family. How could she be so irresponsible and use a small spell to make Wang Mo leave? She still hoped that Wang Mo and Luoli would not enter into a contract, but how could she forcibly reverse Luoli's thoughts? And she forcibly stopped it once. Maybe there's another time. Can she stop it once? Can she still stop it next time? Wang Mo, who was manipulated by the Mingxi spell, suddenly said, "It's already 7 o'clock, I'm going to be late. I have to go to school first." After speaking, she ran away in the direction she had come. Surprisingly, he's almost late. So why does he have to spend this time coming over specifically to see? 002 remained silent. Xianling, however, had some doubts. Why did she just sense a fairy power nearby? The door is clearly closed, and no fairy will appear. She must have thought too much, right? Later, just as Mingxi had thought, she couldn't stop the next time. Wang Mo came to the doll shop again and signed a contract with Luoli to take her away. On the way, he passed Xianling's test and saved Tai Pai. In class, to help Wang Mo, Luoli turned out his homework book and cast magic to make him run faster. But afterwards, Wang Mo advised Luoli not to help her like this again in the future. She wanted to achieve good grades through her own efforts. The next day, I also met Chen Cece, the female lead in the original plot, and became good friends because she shared a common secret. However, on the night of the Ming dynasty, I somewhat abandoned it with my nose and enjoyed everything. I just enjoyed it and had the ability to give up the benefits of these spells. And how can this be called a good friend? There was also some anger. Luoli used magic at will in the human world, which was not something Wang Mo should have experienced. Wang Mo was not actually good-looking, just ordinary, with some small freckles on his face, a round face, kind. This is clearly silly and sweet. And their old iron sheet section is really a double standard. Even though they said they wanted to take care of toys, they still found their iron sheet dirty. And if those children see that scene and their tolerance is not good, they'll be scared to death. They're just joking, they should be hovering on the brink of death. Feng Yinsha also contracted with Black Xiangling and successfully became a subordinate of Mandora. He also helped Feng Yinsha heal his eyes and repair the scars on Black Xiangling's arm. Unconsciously, the plot of the otaku quickly arrived, and Jianpeng and Xu Yan also came to help and contracted the fairy. However, as he was about to defeat the otaku, Mingxi couldn't bear to see it. 8 people beat 3 people, but it was obvious that he couldn't beat them. Is it a group fight? Just as he was about to defeat, he gently reached out his hand and said, "Ye Luoli's magic, moon seal." A crescent mark appeared on the otaku's arm, and his strength also became stronger. However, everyone also had some doubts. Wang Mo and the others were wondering why the strength of the otaku suddenly became stronger again. But Black Xiangling is puzzled, is there a more powerful fairy? As far as she knows, the door to the human world has long been sealed. But she didn't think too much, it was obvious that the other party was here to help them. However, Mingxi was somewhat disappointed. Although the otaku was even more difficult to deal with than before, he was still defeated. However, she was not too disappointed either. Although the blessing of the moon seal only inputted a little fairy power, he was still quite easy to defeat. Moreover, the otaku was only an ordinary human, and naturally could not compare to Wang Mo and the others who had a contracted fairy. After being defeated by the otaku, she also retreated back to the fairyland. Breaking through 10,000 words, happy. I will send you red envelopes when I am wealthy next time. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Go to Wonderland. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Go to Wonderland. A few days later, while taking a walk in the forest, Mingxi suddenly saw Wang Mo and Luoli. 002 came out in time to explain, "Host, this is the place where the male and female leads met in the original plot." Looking back at the original plot, Mingxi felt it was absurd. If the power of the millennium is ordinary, then forget it. Each millennium fairy only has one, and they give it directly to a stranger, which is really outrageous. It's really speechless, isn't the power of 1,000 years cherished? Why give it casually? This thing is not something from a bad street, why can you give it casually? Suddenly on the night of the Ming dynasty, a flash stopped Wang Mo and the others. Mingxi looked at Wang Mo and the three of them. "Who are you?" Luoli whispered to Wang Mo, "Master, she is Princess Xingyue." Princess Xingyue, Luoli, and Tai Pai are being chased by the queen's henchmen. Can you help us? Her face is really big. Yeah, pretty fairy sister, please help us. Tin Pai clasped his hands together. Human beings. Why should I help you? Mingxi looked at them and suddenly remembered Du Shifei's face. These days, Du Shifei has been feeling so uncomfortable, and she saw it in her eyes. In the fairyland, Yi Mingxian is the best to her, followed by Du Shifei and Mandora. However, in Mandora's heart, Xian Ling is the most important, and Du Shifei is also a friend and sister to her. Human beings, stop. Don't run. The footsteps were getting louder and louder, and their hearts were beating faster and faster. Master, Princess Starry Moon won't help us. Let's run quickly. Moreover, Princess Starry Moon also contributed to the Queen's battle with the store manager. She is from the Queen's side. Upon hearing Luoli's words, Mingxi sneered coldly and looked at her coldly, asking, "Luoli, do you deserve your identity, your parents, and your people in this way?" Luoli's expression flashed with a hint of sadness, and she froze there. She held Wang Mo's hand and couldn't help but tighten it a bit. But when she regained her senses, she didn't know what was on her mind. She lowered her head and pleaded with Mingxi in a deep voice, "Princess Xingyue, even if I ask you to help me for the last time." Mingxi was really angry this time and spoke coldly, "Ha. Okay, this is what you said. It may not be possible to help you again next time, and your life and death have nothing to do with me. Luoli, you have betrayed your identity." Luoli stood silently on the side, closing her eyes and concealing the sadness in her expression. Ye Luoli's magic, moonlight shadow. Mingxi concealed herself from Luoli and turned to scold the subordinates of the queens. "What are you doing here? There are not many humans here. Go find them elsewhere and leave for me." The mirror beasts looked around and couldn't feel the human scent, but they found another human scent elsewhere and quickly left to search elsewhere. As soon as Mingxi had lifted the magic from their bodies, he saw Wang Mo about to bow and thank them. You don't need to thank me, this is the last time. If you want to thank me, you should also write about the person next to you who has betrayed his identity, and exchange the glory brought by his identity for me to save you. Luoli, is it worth it? Mingxi didn't hide the disgust in her eyes at all. Looking at Wang Mo and the others, Wang Mo felt a bit embarrassed standing there, but quickly thanked Mingxi and left again. After the three of them left, the water prince slowly appeared and said in a faint voice, "You don't have to intervene." Mingxi just smiled and didn't answer his words. She murmured softly, "If there are a few more disappointments, I can be sure she won't stick to her choice anymore." The water prince did not speak, but slowly returned to the pure water lake, but also remembered the figure of the human girl in his heart. Don't get me wrong. The plot needs it, otherwise I can't continue to write. Seriously, I want to complain about their love line. Can Wang Mo fall in love at first sight even if he is a man? Also, he likes it because his skin has human color, which is really outrageous. Inside Yan Huajing Palace, Mandora sat on the throne, playing with Yuri, and seemed to be looking down at the two mirror beasts, saying, "So, you haven't caught those two humans and their contract fairies?" "Yes. Yes, I did not do well in my work. Please punish me, Queen." The two mirror beasts below lowered their heads and cautiously replied. "Go to the mirror space and reflect on yourself." Mandora's tone suddenly became angry and stern. She turned her wrist and opened the channel of the mirror space. After they all enter, close the passage. Mandora's expression suddenly became very gloomy, and she clenched the jade in her hand. "Sister, it seems that you have already started executing your plan. I will soon find those fairies who will go to the human world with you. You can't stop me. Human beings are too reckless, how dare they break into fairyland?" She stood in front of the huge mirror, looking at the human world revealed in the mirror, and murmured softly, "If I could come to the human world, I would let you know my strength. No, we can't wait like this anymore." At this moment, Mandora suddenly remembered the silver sand that was still in the human world. Mandora began to cast spells and summon the sealing silver sand. She borrowed his human body from him, but Feng Yinsha's body energy was only for her hands to move freely, but she believed it was enough. "Sister, you sealed and restricted me for the sake of humanity, but why can't you understand me as well as Mingxi?" Speaking of Mingxi, she remembered the last conversation with Mingxi, and there was still a hint of guilt in her heart. She cared more about her sister than Mingxi. Mandora actually has nothing to wash. She is a very contradictory person. She wants to occupy the human world in order to prevent the destruction of the fairyland. However, her actions are quite extreme and she really cares about her sister. If the protagonist and Xinling have to make a choice, Mandora will not hesitate to choose Xinling. In class, Wang Mo and Chen Sisi were whispering to each other, but the teacher noticed that they had called their names. However, Wang Mo made a mistake in pronunciation, which made the students burst into laughter. However, Chen Sisi stood up and read it fluently. "After class, I went to a deserted place with my friends and talked about the appearance of the fairyland. Just as I was about to return to the classroom, the sky suddenly darkened. Feng Yinsha was draped in a blue robe and held a silver knife in his hand. He set up a barrier and cast spells, causing a strong wind to blow. The people on the street panicked and fled home, while Xiaopang was also swept away by the tornado. Luoli told them that this was a magical wind. Wang Mo wanted to save Xiaopang and was about to sign a contract with Luoli. Feng Yinsha cast a spell in their direction and blew a tornado. The peacock used magic to block their attack, and Feng Yinsha reported to Mandora. She smiled with satisfaction. The passage of the parallel world opened, and a dark black monster-shaped door emerged. Mandora's hands also came to the human world through the mirror, catching the peacock and Luoli. Feng Yinsha trapped the escaping Chen Sisi with a stone pillar, allowing her to catch him. Wang Mo tried to enter into a contract to save them, but was knocked down by Feng Yinsha. He used a silver knife to cut open the ground, separating them from each other and preventing them from making a contract. Luoli helped her find her own strength, and Wang Mo quickly jumped a few meters high, successfully signing a contract with Luoli. He burned Mandora's hand with magical flames and subconsciously released the peacock. If Mingxi were present, I would definitely exclaim. Wow, it's a pity not to become the champion of the long jump. And she continued to roast about her amazing jumping ability. How could she not have this potential in the long jump in PE class? This is really amazing, isn't it, that sports are not good? Since sports are not good, why can we still jump so high? Wang Mo shouldn't be a long jump athlete, right? If possible, I recommend Wang Mo to participate in a long jump competition. It's a pity that he doesn't have the talent to participate. Feng Yinsha let Black Xiangling out, and Luoli and Peacock were surprised to see her. They didn't expect her to defect to the queen and scold her as a traitor. When Black Xiangling heard these words, she felt a bit sad and disappointed with them. She remembered the humiliation she had suffered from the scar on her arm, and then confirmed her decision to defect to the queen. I'm really curious. Where did they come from? Anyway, they are also former sisters. Is the trust so low? Feng Yinsha sneered and signed a contract with Black Xiangling, cutting the teaching building in half with one blow. It was truly admirable of his strength. Luoli and the peacock exchanged a glance, used the final Ye Luoli magic, closed the door, and together pushed back the sealed silver sand. Wang Mo and the others also used magic to push the sealed silver sand into the gate. Finally, the gate closed and Feng Yinsha returned to the fairyland, while Luoli and Peacock were also caught and brought back to the fairyland. Wang Mo and the others went to the doll shop together to find clues, but the contract only repeated the introductory instructions. Black shadows flashed by, and they hid behind the table. Carrying the contract, I came to Chen Cici's house to study and found that the box could lead to a fairyland. Chen Cici used peacock feathers to enter the fairyland, while Wang Mo tried using Luoli's accessories, but was unsuccessful. In the fairyland as both fairies, Mandora didn't want to harm them. She just locked Peacock and Luoli separately in the mirror, not letting them hinder Mandora. Xu Yan and Jianping helped Wang Mo find the doll box and took her to the doll shop. They asked her to take out the contract, fold her hands on it, and identify the authentication information. Xian Ling walked out, then gave a speech output before opening the door to them and sending them to the fairyland. Iron Sheet also sneaked in. Xu Yan and Wang Mo arrived at the crossroads of the fairyland, and Jasmine went back to pick up Jianping and the others. The Iron Sheet failed to land because it was too heavy, so they lay on the ground. The others successfully landed and played for a while. They even went to Jasmine's house to have dessert, completely forgetting that Chen Cici went to the palace of the female king alone and played together for a long time. It's really speechless. Chen Cici almost lost his life. If it weren't for the immediate conclusion of the contract, it would have been gone long ago. How could they have let it go and played slowly? If someone else is gone, would they still have to find an excuse to shirk responsibility there? If it's too late, don't mind. Carat Omega Carat, thank you for your recommended tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Fighting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Fighting in the fairyland. Chen Cici and Feng Yinsha, who came alone, engaged in a battle in front of the palace gate. Peacock and Chen Cici made contact, broke through the mirror space, and froze both Feng Yinsha and Black Xiangling. Luoli also left the mirror space, but she was a bit disappointed in her heart. Why did the owner of the peacock come to rescue her? And her master didn't come. The three of them were about to leave when Mandora reached out her hand and grabbed Luoli back. The mirror space is closed, and Chen Cici and the others are unable to rescue Luoli. On Wang Mo's side, Jianping and his companions were pulled into a tree hole by the tree spirit Onoyi, and Xu Yan was sucked in by touching the mirror through a fluorescent staircase. Wang Yemo and Jianping became friends with Ono Yi and learned some things from him. Jianping had a sparring with him for a while, and Ono Yi, looking at Xian Ling's face, helped train Jianping. Feng Yinsha reported to Mandora, but Mandora only waved his hand to show that he knew and did not blame him further. She threw Luoli in her hand towards Feng Yinsha and Black Xiangling, who were escorting Luoli. Luoli struggled and angrily rebuked Mandora. Mandora just smiled. If humans can really change, why bother to be this queen? I don't know what's good about humans, but they have deceived my sister and made the two of us turn against each other. But haven't you come out yet? As soon as the words fell, a sedan chair appeared and the Water Prince walked out from inside. The Water Prince. The dust on your body tastes strong. I'll wash it for you. The water splashed Luoli, and she was like a wet drowned chicken at this moment. Oh, Prince of Water, are you bullying girls? Mandora was clearly stunned when she saw Mingxi. After the big battle, she not only became enemies with her sister, but also had a distance with Mingxi. Sunset. Why did you come? Mingxi glanced at Mandora with no extra expression on her face and said, Why? Can't I come? Mandora exclaimed excitedly, Yes. Of course you can come anytime. Mingxi didn't speak, just walked up to Luoli on her own, looked down at her from a high position, and said coldly, Luoli, do I regret asking you again? This time, Luoli did not refute, just lying on the ground with her head down, but she was already disappointed in her heart. I caught her, but the peacock escaped not long ago and is probably still near the Jinghua Palace. The Water Prince is planning to help me catch them. That's just right, I'm so bored. Let's go with the Water Prince. The Water Prince nodded and took Mingxi to the platform. What's coming over? A water tap attacked them and they quickly dodged. Take a moment to see the appearance of the person coming. Snow-white skin, blue hair. This faucet is. Master, he is the Water Prince. The crystallization of water converges into a dragon shape. The Water Prince didn't wait for them to react before he began to cast magic. He is quiet and aloof, living deep in the clean water lake of the forest. How could he appear here, said Jasmine. Stop talking nonsense. Water faucet, attack. The peacock used a shield to block the faucet and let them all hide behind her. Didn't anyone tell you not to expose your back in the enemy's sight? Several moon blades flew towards them at extremely fast speed, with Xu Yan blocking behind and cutting several crescent-shaped wounds deep into visible bones on his body. Looking up, Mingxi stood behind them. She is the Star Moon Princess. At this moment, we're still talking nonsense. Faucet, attack him. Chen Sisi first injected some strength into the peacock with insufficient energy, and then used mirror light to protect and block the faucet in the rear. Water Prince, stop. Why are you helping Mandora? She will destroy Wonderland and the human world. Perhaps Mandora is wrong, but must Xinling be right? The fairies keep disappearing, even the great fairies are affected. But Xinling, this fool, still has illusions about humans. At this rate of destruction, how long can the fairies survive? Mingxi looked at Jasmine coldly, making her stand a bit uneasy. Peacock and Chen Sisi launched an attack, freezing the two water hoses. Ice magic, how could it appear on humans? Mingxi knew the plot and just glanced at the peacock. Prince of Water, your master's ice magic happens to be your nemesis. The Water Prince remained silent, with a hint of playfulness in his eyes. You're a sullen gourd, can't you speak? Let's go. Mingxi sneered, took 2 steps back, tiptoed a little, and jumped into mid-air. Ye Luoli's magic, starry dart. Several star-like darts appeared in Mingxi's hand, thrown downwards at lightning speed, like a silver light, densely packed and extremely fast. The shield was useless and had no effect. The scars on their bodies grew more and more, making them unable to hold on and struggling to stand there. Mingxi. The Water Prince spoke out to signal her to stop. Okay, even if the Water Prince has spoken, then stop, but you shouldn't be feeling heartbroken, right? Mingxi stopped her spell and looked at the Water Prince with a light smile, but her eyes were very calm. The person standing there was now covered in bruises and blood staining their clothes. Jasmine used magic to control the injuries of several people. Mingxi and Black Xiangling in the distance took a deep breath upon seeing this scene. Even if you don't take action on Mingxi, you won't be able to leave. How childish. Water is inherently intangible, and you cannot harm the intangible water. Mingxi stood aside, covering her face with her wide sleeves and laughing heartily, ha ha ha, Prince of Water, and then I thought you were heartbroken. Oh, you are so naive. Who gave you the confidence to dare to fight against two holy fairies? Although the peacocks were angry, they dared not speak up. It was the foolish Jianpeng who had been provoking the Water Prince and Mingxi. They cannot break through this water wall built by strong winds and water. I don't need your help. What are you doing? Water droplets converge. The water rushed towards the sealed silver sand, and he used a silver knife to split the water. Mingxi stood on the side and yawned, bored as she watched them play around. Have you had enough fun? It's really boring, playing around like two little kids, so childish. But neither of them made any sense, perhaps because they felt speechless and didn't want to interfere. I'm too lazy to help you, I just want to complete the Queen's task as soon as possible. The Water Prince just glanced at it and didn't say a word. Master, he doesn't like to talk to others. Okay, I won't interfere anymore, let's go. Mingxi and Black Xiangling did not intervene again. We're trapped in a water wall. Can magic break the water wall? However, the power of Chen Xixi's magic was bounced back by the water wall. Xu Yan used the eyes of the Holy Spirit to find the weakness of the water wall, and the two of them worked together to break it down. On the other hand, Luoli told the Queen the way to open the door and also gave her immortal power. She left the palace with Wang Mo, but she did not go back. Xian Ling also noticed changes in the contract. The contract between Wang Mo and Luoli was terminated, and she tried to restore it, but was still powerless. Chen Xixi used magic to freeze the water tap into ice, but her magical ice broke down into droplets, wetting her and the peacock. Jasmine's sweet umbrella cannot cover it. Get up. Water droplets rise and surround them. Water Prince, please stop for a moment. I want to play. Mingxi was also very helpless. It was too boring to just watch the Water Prince abuse his scum and not take action. It was better to stay with Emperor Yuan. Not only Jianpeng and the others were speechless, but the Water Prince was also quite speechless. When others were fighting here, she thought it was just a game, but still stopped. Ye Luoli's magic shatters the stars. The stars in the sky seemed to burst open, falling straight down, beautiful and dreamy, but Jianpeng and his team had no time to appreciate them. The broken stars were like glass and bullets, and they could only resist stubbornly. And Mingxi stood in the sky watching them until she had enough to play before stopping and eating the grapes that Ye Mingxin had prepared for her. She also occasionally commented on them, causing the Water Prince to almost hit her. End of this chapter.